Hey everybody, happy new year. And back with what is going to be the first live stream I've done of the new year. Of is going to be the first live stream I've done of the new year of 2023, 2024, excuse me, and of significant length. And it is designed, this presentation, to really definitively end this ridiculous conversation around financing for what would be the Las Vegas Athletics ballpark in at the Tropicana site. There has been a lot of deliberate fake news and misinformation, and the latest version, the latest contribution to this problem was done by this gentleman. I don't know him. His name is Jason Burke. But I do know that he does not have a background in stadium finance. Yet that didn't stop him from 14 hours ago writing A's in Las Vegas separating fact from fiction. And it was passed to me by a fan of the channel. And at first I refused to read it. And I thought, well, I know it's going to be wrong, so let me read it. And of course, unfortunately, I was not disappointed in my expectations. He goes on to separate fact from fiction. Then he says one article that was being pushed around A's Twitter, as he calls it, was a post from BVM, which is an atrocity, BVM Sports, which is a Cliff Notes version of a column written over at Athletics Nation, which is also equally awful. And that was called Oakland Athletics Face Challenges with Las Vegas Stadium Renderings and Financing, which is really a lie because the renderings, first of all, are done, and the financing is not an issue and hasn't been, except in the minds of those who think that the A's are supposed to tell them everything right off the bat, as opposed to them asking how the process goes and understanding what's next in the process, and just simply letting it play out with full understanding that this is not their area of expertise, because it's not. And they didn't go, for example, to University of California at Berkeley's Department of City Regional Planning Master's Program, where I took a number of economics courses focused on the public sector, including public sector economics taught by the legendary Fred Calignon, who at one point ran for mayor of Berkeley. But at any rate, and was a great council member, aside from being a great professor, who owned a home that looked like the one in The Exorcist, but I digress. At any rate, he then goes on, this Jason Burke fellow, to say for some reason the BVM piece was all over his social media and was being taken as real reporting instead of an opinion from another site. Now, this is opinion itself, what I'm reading with this guy. All right, this guy has no expertise in financing. So, but he puts himself as if he has some background. He doesn't. All right. He wouldn't know how to do tax increment financing to save my life, let alone his own. He doesn't know how to do the calculations. He's never worked with investment bankers. He's never given a presentation to investment bankers. I can go on and on and on. But I'm just getting warm. Okay. And then he goes on in this to say that he says there's no indication they have financing, and then he says this can all very well be true. I mean, he's leaning on what other people have written, which is already wrong. And it says this could well be true, and it's not. And he says, but it isn't exactly a given at this point. And then he writes, it seems like many A's fans saw one of these articles, took the Vital Vegas tweet, which told them what they wanted to hear. He's right about that, and concluded that was fact. While there's been a delay in the renderings release, we also just celebrated the holiday season, which may not have been the best time to get people to jump aboard the A's to Vegas hype train. I side with him there. Okay. But the reason why the renderings haven't been released is simply because, look, you have to redo the ceremony if you're going to do it and make sure the state troopers are available for the governor because they have their own protection program. Now, and then of course there are the other matters of schedules and all that and facility availability. Okay. All that. That's why I think the release date is going to be the 18th of January with less pomp and circumstance. At any rate, he writes, then there was a tweet that people also seem to be taking as fact since it had people asking Bay Area journalists about the team's next steps a day later. And that's this Tim Blonsky. Now, I put out a video that immediately connected what this was, the Cisco design, to its origins. Did this guy mention it? Nope. Was it visible? Yep. Okay. All right. He instead veers over to say for people that are not terminally online, they may not know Tim Blonsky's shtick, which is to post AI generated images daily. And that's not really this is so dastardly incorrect, it's weird. All right. And he says this one is obviously fake. But from what people unfamiliar with the use, they took it as fact that the Tropicana deal was falling apart. Now, see what this guy is completely wrong. All right. As I put out to anybody, and is this is based on the Cisco Field designed for Cisco Field in Fremont. So Jason Burke totally missed this. He didn't do any homework whatsoever. Okay. And undoubtedly saw what I put out and skipped mentioning it. All right. Because these guys think that they know more about this than I do, when the fact of the matter is they know absolutely nothing. Absolutely 100% nothing. Okay. Don't sign up to teach a class in any of this. So the truth of the matter here regarding this is that as we scroll through here and we go to videos, scrolling down, we find this. This is what I put out. Make sure that you can see this. And then I'll put my video in place of what he wrote, because at this point it's a good idea to switch out there. Okay. And then I will go back, freeze frame it here, enlarge it there, and I'll show you what I said. The Las Vegas Athletics next to I-95 in Henderson, near the Raiders training facility. I immediately saw the photograph and recognized it as the Cisco field that was proposed for the Athletics to move to Fremont way back around the turn of the 21st century. And so I went over and got that photograph, and as you can see, it is that, and brought it here. Fake news. And it's sad that you have these people who don't want to learn about why Oakland government failed to retain the A's, or for that matter, the Raiders and the Warriors. They want to put out fake news that everything's okay, and it's not. And see, Jason didn't even bother to research where the image came from. He made an assumption about this Twitter guy and didn't even bother to test his own assumption. Okay? He didn't even bother to test his own assumption. It's really horrible what is going on out there. I don't want to go in the next breath and call him lazy or anything, but as the member of the Nevada legislature did, that's harsh. But it's quite clear that not enough the wrong investigative work was done to determine the truth about the image. Jason did a simple assumption. All right, here, okay. And so, but if you take a look, I want you to take a look at something. All right, this is Major League Baseball. Hey, I'll get you in a second. This is the Major League Baseball design for Fremont many years ago. All right, that's what this is. Yet Jason says that same image, I want you to look at this, okay? Says that the same image that he's talking about here, all right? Same image, all right? As we scroll down a bit here, he calls this AI. All right? This is not AI. Look at this, all right? He calls this AI. It's the same image. All right, this is the same image. It's not AI. He just made that up. He just made that up. This is what they pay people to do at SI now? Make things up? All right, this is clearly the same image. All you have to do is go back over here. All right, excuse me. It's clearly the same image that he employed. Excuse me. In my video, where I used it was here.
One simple but brilliant trick to heat your home in 90 seconds and save thousands of dollars on your heating bill this winter. This genius.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happened to see a that matter. The Raiders will stop it right there. Yeah, it's clearly the same image. All right, same image. There's no AI. It's absolutely incomplete in terms of thinking. That's the only AI that applies here, folks. It's not artificial intelligence. It's absolutely incomplete thinking. There's your AI, folks. All right. Okay. But this is where we are right now. We have a number of people who are in their 20s and were babies when this first issue came up. And therefore, their memory is about what really happened is, well, non-existent. And most of the time they don't know who to turn to, who actually was there, who was part of, for example, Save Oakland Sports or Let's Go Oakland or Let's Go A's. I was part of all those organizations and more, okay? But they get in publications like this and they write crap and say that this is AI when it's not. All right? When it's the same image that was first proposed for Fremont many years ago. Same image. All right? Same image. Okay? So he goes on with this then it gets worse in his article, separating fact from fiction, when he goes down. This is really what sent me to the moon. It says that there's a guy named Todd who's an A's fan and banker by trade, but because of that, it's supposed to automatically make him an expert in these matters. All right. And Todd has no idea what he's talking about and wasted basically 14 pages of thread. But this is what he puts himself out as, a career banker. Okay, for who? Homeowners? Okay, lender and finance professional with no stadium experience. He says he wants to shed some light on the financial obstacles John Fisher faces with his relocation. All right. And then he says that Vital Vegans is a proven reliable source of news. And right there, I started to stop. I said, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. All right. It's not financing. And yeah, the thread is 14 tweets in length. And he goes on talking about how much he talks about what Fisher has. Okay. And then he talks about how much the loan would cost. And he focuses everything on the team and cash flows and Fisher. My point is, the mistake you all make all the time is you focus on what you think you know rather than studying to learn what you don't know. The fact of the matter, as I've said before, is that it's the stadium's own ability to produce revenues that's judged by investment bankers moving forward, not the business and its capability to pay that loan. That's not how this is done. Stadiums are designed as business facilities to pay for themselves as investment vehicles. The same idea that a number of people now use to evaluate startups applies. Basically, can I make money from this? If I put money into it, will I get X out of it? In other words, multiple. And if so, how much? That's what this is all about today. And it's a good reason for that, having to do with player salaries. Stadium costs have increased in direct proportion. I would say the direct in the same direction, I should say, up, as player salaries, going all the way back to 2003. And where we're going today is such that, you mark my words, the ballparks of the future will be like Disneyland, 100-acre affairs that you can live in, and a percentage of the revenue from all of the different types of ways of existing there, including hotels and condominiums and bars and restaurants and everything else, gambling. All of that will contribute to pay these near billion-dollar salaries that we're now seeing come on the horizon. I believe that before I leave this earth, we will see the first trillion-dollar sports organization. You mark my words. In some form, that organization will be worth $1 trillion. Okay? Because of building efforts like this, what I'm talking about. Coliseum City is a great example. All right? A fantastic example. A fantastic example. And what the A's are doing in Las Vegas with that district within a district concept will help them into the future. Just how far is anyone's guess. But given the way the area is laid out, my prediction is that they're going to be able to expand within it. Mark my words. Okay? It's the cash flow. The cash flow from the ballpark facility. And now, to further demonstrate how all of this works, and I'll get to answer your question, I'm going to present to you an organization that you may not have heard of. And that organization is simply called, and that's their website, and I'm going to shrink this in a bit, but it's simply called Mitsubishi UFC Americas. And you would say, what do they do? And what they do, excuse me for a second, is they have, I believe, 5,700 employees over 30 countries doing various types of financing for projects from infrastructure to, well, sports and sports stadiums. They got involved in the stadium financing business in 2012, but they went in with a gigantic splash, acquiring the expertise of a number of people who had been in sports finance for much longer. All right, much longer. And so the organization that is called, excuse me, Mitsubishi, excuse me for a second here, UFC Americas, Mitsubishi UFC, I'm sorry, financing group is determined to be the number one player in the world in this area. That's what they're aiming to be, the number one player. And Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group, to that end, in their website, which you're about to see, has done a keen job of presenting the work that they did for the financing of Globe Life Stadium. Yeah, where the Rangers play. Yes, the same facility that some said Dave Cobble favored as a template for design for the Oakland A's Las Vegas ballpark. And to that end, I'll open this segment of what I'm talking about by presenting you with this.
We are building a $1.25 billion brand new state-of-the-art retractable roof stadium to be the new home of the Texas Rangers Baseball Club.
Kelly, she had a goal, and the goal was basically to secure a certain amount of financing to get the venue coming out of the ground. She wanted to deal with respectable partners who can deliver on time and as promised.
We do have a choice. That's the luxury of working for a prestigious company like the Texas Rangers. We choose who we want to do business with, and we're only going to do business with those that are easy and flexible and understanding, but also have the expertise to get the jobs done correctly.
So when she came to us and outlined her financial plan and projections and so forth, there was very little debate around the fact of what she was projecting and what she was going to say, how it was going to be financed and ultimately come out of the ground and be built.
We're looking for not just someone who can technically get the job done, it's also a bank that has done this before, has seen what goes well and what doesn't go well, but also keeps us in the driver's seat. And that was really probably the most critical piece to selecting a bank. MUFG was actually who MLB recommended that we consider utilizing. Once I understood Jerry was at MUFG, it was a no-brainer for us to say, yes, let's talk to them. Let's see how we can make this work.
We have a bit of an advantage at MUFG in the sports space, or in any vertical for that matter, because we are a very large financial institution. So what does that mean for the clients? It basically means that whatever needs they may have, small or large, in this case it was large for Kelly and the Rangers, it's not a problem.
MUFG, in addition to the loan itself, also brought expertise in terms of management of funds, timing, flows of cash, helping us structure all of the accounts for the trustee, for example, to make sure that they're going in and out, the funds are going in and out in a way that works for our credit facility, but also works for the team as a whole. We are spending tens of millions of dollars every single month. You need a banking partner that understands the timing of those flows, how those flows are going to work, what they mean, who's the best to review those invoices in that level of detail. All of these things MUFG understands.
Okay, so that's a great video from them, and but that only explains part of the picture. Let me show you the other part that really closes the deal here in terms of righting the ship regarding cleaning up this fake news problem. This is their wonderful segment right here, and it's called, I'll enlarge it for you to see better, here and here. One more time. 5 considerations for private placements in sports and live entertainment venues. And I'll read it word for word. As developers of sports and live entertainment venues seek creative financing solutions to pursue a growing number of projects worldwide, there are a number of issues to keep in mind. MUFG's Jerry Parisi, who you heard in the video and saw, managing director of sports finance, specified 5 points to consider relating to private placements at the 2019 Venues Now conference, September 10th in New York. Number 1. And now this is the meat of it, folks. And I really want you to pay attention to what I'm about to tell you here, because this segment will blow away what Todd presented and demonstrate that Todd had no idea how municipal and sports investment bankers look at financing for a ballpark. It's not the Fisher business. It's not the owner. It's the very stadium itself. Watch and listen. Okay? What this says is that the following, right here, starting right here. The typical collateral in venue financing, common collateral, is used in finance sports and other live entertainment venues includes, first, the borrower's equity interests in all assets, personal and real, derived therefrom, including dividends and distributions. But then, naming rights, ticket surcharges, rent, license fees, luxury and club seat premiums, concessions, parking fees, merchandise sales in the venue, sponsorships related to venue clubs, all venue-related cash flows not attributable to the franchise team. I repeat, all venue-related cash flows not attributable to the franchise team. So in other words, if you are going in a situation like the A's and you own all of the revenue streams in the ballpark that have nothing to do, all of them, which means those that have nothing to do with baseball, then from the perspective of Mitsubishi, you're looking pretty good. Okay? Same as the Raiders with Allegiant Stadium. It's the same model. Mark Arnold can talk to you about that. He's the lawyer structuring the stadium authority there, as he had done before. Now it's a restructure. You can talk with the people over at SoFi Stadium, similar structure. Talk to Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones regarding AT&T Stadium called Cowboy Stadium. Same structure. Same is true for the 49ers at Levi Stadium with a twist regarding redevelopment monies. All right? But all of them present the NFL or Major League Baseball or even National Basketball Association or hockey organization with a model such that the team owns the revenue streams. They don't use all of the revenue stream, but they get what is needed to run the facility, and then, of course, are able to take some off the top within reason. When Eric Grubman was NFL executive vice president for business operations and the point person for the new stadiums, I literally hunted him down in the Houston NFL owners meeting. And I'm sorry, Houston NFL owners meeting. And I said to him, this is in 2016, when it was learned that the Raiders are going to enter into a financing structure where the stadium is owned by Clark County, but the Raiders own the revenue stream. I said, I thought the Raiders wanted to own their own stadium. And he said, Zinni, what's the difference if I own the revenue stream, right? And basically, from a standpoint of business valuation, he's absolutely right. The idea is that I, as the team, own the revenue stream that comes from the stadium. It helps my bottom line. It also helps me pay off financing for it, because then I can draw revenue from all the events that occur within my venue. Taylor Swift concert, big money there. A gigantic wedding between two families so large that they can make up their own city. A lot of money there. Any event you can think of that would occur in an Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders get part of the money from that, as will the Athletics in Las Vegas. Same thing. So when you see this all venue-related cash flows not attributable to the franchise team, that's the secret sauce and why this new way of financing facilities is so popular, okay? And also necessary. And let's get to number 2. How bank lenders assess cash flows from a particular stadium, arena, or venue during construction. Remember, this has to do with private placement. Why private placement? Because you're taking the stadium as a gigantic investment vehicle. Remember, I talked about before where the stadium is such that you're putting a little money into it to get a lot of money out of it. All right. So, number 2, how bank lenders assess cash flows from a particular stadium, arena, or venue during construction. During the construction phase of a venue, there's obviously no cash flow from the venue itself to assess. However, there's usually an existing fan base to ascertain market demand for live sports, especially the premium segment within clubs and suites. Most new venues have smaller capacity that has replaced older facilities with an emphasis on the premium categories within the lower bowl of a venue. Conversely, the upper bowl with a higher construction cost typically yields the lowest return per square foot. So that's why Amy Trask called this out many years ago. She said, eventually you're going to have a Super Bowl with just 20,000 people. Well, now you see why. Okay. Then she writes, the importance of market studies in securing venue financing, This is major league important to pay attention to, folks. The importance of market studies in securing venue financing depends on the scope of the project being financed. For example, if a sports league is expanding into a new market territory, like the A's into Las Vegas, then other franchisees in markets with similar demographics could yield useful data for comparison, particularly in the premium category. Market studies are also useful if the venue in question is somewhat reliant on third-party events, and that speaks greatly to the athletics ballpark in Las Vegas. This is continued. Number 4, the importance of revenue from non-sports events in the financing of a typical stadium or arena. Just as demand for live entertainment has evolved to become performance artists' primary sources of income, so has the role of stadiums and arenas, which today serve not only as sports venues, but also as entertainment locales. For this reason, revenue from third party events is more important today in the financing of a typical stadium arena, especially amid the scarcity of public funding sources. Years ago, debt capital was largely unavailable for one team venues. So the deeper penetration into the entertainment business provides additional revenue diversity. That's a fancy way of basically saying this is another way for them to make money because they need to pay for the stadiums, and it's harder because politically public funds in some areas have been harder and harder to get, particularly on the West Coast. Basically, it's like this. The higher the cost of living in the region, the less likely it is you're going to be able to get the public funding you need to build in that region. All right? It goes on. Okay? The non-relocation agreement, remember that? And its importance to the financing of a stadium arena. And here I want to inform you all of something. The A's have already got the non-relocation agreement out of the way in the Las Vegas context. Remember, the Raiders didn't. They were several meetings into and until the next year of the original Las Vegas Stadium Authority before the non-relocation agreement was introduced, read, and eventually signed by the Raiders. And they didn't exactly do it in a quick fashion. They kind of took their time with it and made some people nervous. All right. Now, this is what Mitsubishi says. Non-relocation agreements are critical instruments for venue financed by both public and private capital sources. It binds the stadium's affiliate franchise, and usually by extension the governing league, to a certain market territory. All capital providers assess each market's history, including its fan base and potential support for the relocation or expansion of a venue's franchise. The agreement provides comfort that the franchise will play all of its home games with the legal injunctions protection of the court system. An injunction is a legal and equitable remedy in the form of a special court order that compels a party to perform or refrain from specific acts. When a court employs the extraordinary remedy of injunction, it directs the conduct of the party and does so with the backing of its full coercive powers. It goes on. And that's it. Okay? So there are 5 factors to consider, 5 considerations for private placements in sports and live entertainment venues. The A's are doing a private placement. So this perfectly applies to the athletic situation. Perfectly, okay? And before I get to your questions, okay? Let me say that if you remember the presentation by Stephen Hill and Jeremy Aguelo to the Nevada legislature, in their quoting of tax revenues, that was the presentation you should have paid the most attention to. Not to make fun of them, but for the details and understanding them. Because all you had to do is take the tax revenue that's present, All right. And then divide it by its rates. All of that was given to you, that information. And then you get the projected revenue from the facility for the first year, which came out to be $757 million, a record for the Athletics. And if it holds, and I believe it will, by the time the Athletics get going their first year, the highest revenue of any organization in Major League Baseball, let alone one of the highest in sports. Okay? But see, a number of you, understandably upset that the A's are leaving, didn't want to listen to any detail. But you clumsily apply arguments that you should have applied in Oakland. Like, for example, why are you using public money? Well, there's a lot of it that's going to be used in the Howard Terminal complex context, but you didn't complain about that. Okay? Folks, learn this deal. And along the way, you'll be learning about the modern age of stadium financing. You'll be able to separate truth from fiction. Now, let me get to your questions. Wolverine says, do you think that Bally's could be in financial trouble? They need to demolish the Trop, plus build a new resort in its place. The site will be under construction for the next 5 years. Thoughts? Bally's recorded record profits. Let me show you something. Because I believe it was Vital Vegas. It was Scott that put this out there. Scott, shame on you. Okay? Because, and I've said this to you again and again and again, Bally's has posted record revenue, I believe, for the third quarter of 2022, and it's 2023. And yeah, and here it is. Let me share this with you right now, folks, so that you can see what I've just found and are pointing to. This is very important to remember. All right. And then place in this context. Okay. Right here. There. All right. That $632.5 million. Bally's Corporation has released its financial results for the third quarter of 2023 period, reporting record company-wide revenue of $632.5 million, an increase of 9.4% year over year. Additionally, Bally's also reported a record casinos and resorts revenue of $359 million, up 9.3% year over year. Okay? Okay? Now, Gambling Insider says, yeah, revenue's up, but they posted a net loss. All right? And they said cash expenditure nearly trebled on year. Now, what they say is that in North America's interactive revenue made up a small amount of its interactive revenue, bringing in $29 million. And revenue reported from gaming operations increased to $508 million. And they said despite its revenue increases, Bally's reported a net loss of $61.8 million, down from a profit figure of $593 million in Q3, Q2. And total operating costs and expenses rose. All right. And he says that, and here's where it's really careful. And here's why I'm going here. Because you would think, ha, ha, ha. But hold on a second. The reason for the loss figure, as is pointed out by Gambling Insider, can be pointed to numerous investments the company has made throughout the quarter. Bally's opened the Chicago temporary casino in September. The guidance range for adjusted EBITDA is now $640 million, down from $655 million. Okay, that's earnings before taxes and hence EBITDA. This change reflects the later than expected opening of the company's Chicago temporary casino. And the point I'm making is this. These losses are not losses in the sense that they're not making money. They reflect commitments and investments that can be changed and altered over time. It also reflects the fact that, well, they're trying to avoid paying a lot of taxes. So you get, I'm just explaining how this works. You get an accountant or accounting group that knows how to make it so that you're not paying a lot of taxes because you're coming away with a gigantic profit. That's really what this is about. So it would be, I'm just being kind, but it's true. It would be foolish to forecast what Bally's is going to do based on a revenue loss number, or excuse me, at based on a loss number when the company has posted record revenues, and it's well known that they are building new gambling facilities at various places around the world. Now, here comes the Oakland Athletics moving to Las Vegas, and you can't now determine exactly what they're going to spend 5 years from now. Give it another 2 years before it materializes in full. I would, because they're going to want to see what the A's are doing, already planning with the A's. And they want to develop something that works in concert, design-wise and economically, with the Athletics ballpark. So the idea that Bally's is going to go under or that they can't get this done is silly. It's just outright silly. And it's shameful for people to keep pushing these ideas when they haven't really sat down to think about it or do the proper research themselves. Because clearly they haven't. All right. So I think Bally's is going to do wonders there. Vegas Mark says Wolverines, after the new ballpark opens in 2028, Bally's plans to open a new hotel next to it, basically a new Bally's. That's true. Blake Cunningham says there are so many venues in Vegas. I don't see how the revenue stream would be higher in Vegas than in Oakland. Well, let me explain. Very simple. In Oakland, Blake, the Athletics had only a handful of revenue streams they could command. In other words, if there was a monster truck event, the A's saw none of that. If there was a Stones concert, the A's saw none of that. I know I've been to the Stones concert at the Coliseum. If there was, you name it, anything other than their own baseball operation, baseball games, the A's saw none of that revenue. By contrast, the A's own the revenue stream coming into the facility in its entirety, regardless of whether it is a 50th anniversary of hip hop or an A's game or a makeshift tennis tournament, you name it. As long as it occurs in the A's facility, they see a cut of the revenue from that. So there's your difference. The overall comparable is like comparing the destructive power of an H-bomb over here, talking about all these revenue streams coming together, with that of a kitchen match over here. That's how much different it is. So for you to say you can't see how the revenue stream will be higher in Vegas than in Oakland, after this, you have to have seen it. Vegas Mark says, Blake Cunningham, I heard the same words before 2017. Pre-27 Vegas and today's Vegas are so completely different. By the way, who says it's only baseball that be played at the new ballpark? I hope I answered both of you guys' questions there, or give you something to think about. Vegas Mark says visiting teams fans regarding Major League Baseball will stay longer, thus spend more, kind of like international tourists. F1 is the extreme example, but you get my point. Then he goes on. Bally's needs both the new ballpark plus its new hotel to work when they open. The Tropicana can no longer compete in today's strip. It's got to go. All I'm explaining to you folks is that don't believe the idea that the Tropicana is, is not going to be torn down and all this stuff is not going to happen. It's ridiculous. Wolverine says, true. My point is construction will be going on that site for the next 5 to 10 years, meaning going to a ball game while the rest of the site is still being constructed. That's not true. It doesn't take 10 years to build a hotel, like maybe 2. Okay. Building a hotel is not a complicated affair. All right. There. Okay. So I believe that's got all of your inputs there. So there's the presentation. And I hope now you understand in closing that John Fisher's money has little to do with this. Sure, they're going to look at the existing business, but that's given. But it's not the driver of whether or not financing is received for a new ballpark in this instance. So it has to do with basically how great your market study and proposal look to the banker. Now, in the athletics case, they have Greg Carey of Goldman Sachs they're working with, who's an old hand at this. So that's why I said they already have that locked up. Okay? So all the revenue projections that you're seeing, that's part of their study. That's part of the secret sauce that's going to get them the money that they need to do the private placement financing. Don't worry. It's going to work. It's already working like a charm. Already happening. All right? So what I'm asking everybody to do is understand the techniques of how things work. Scott, Vital Vegas, what you did was shameful. I explained to you, my friend, in our private messages back and forth. Now I'm saying it publicly. Someone has been driving you. It's not just your idea that, oh, you don't like, or sports. It's more to it than that. And you really should come clean with the rest of us what's going on. Who's paying you to put out this constant fake news? There's a group of you. You're doing it. My friend Michael Colbruno's doing it, primarily. Chris DeBenedetti is doing it too. Even Casey Pratt's gotten involved in it over at ABC. All right. So my point is this: even if you may be doing it for different reasons, it still adds up to putting out fake news. And you're not, for those of you who claim to be journalists, you're not, and I'm not a person who's ever said they were a journalist. I'm a blogger. But it's for reasons like this that I said I would never call myself a journalist. And your behaviors are proving what I said a few years ago, spot on, correct. Okay. You say, what did I say? And I'll show you why I said I'm not a journalist. And I made this vlog way back in 6 years ago in San Francisco. I was coming out of an event out of the W. And here is what I'm saying. And I want you to understand this. Why I say I'm a vlogger and not a journalist. All right. Watch this, please, when I get it set here. San Francisco's financial district on a Friday night. People out and about, Christmas shopping, there are parties everywhere. Stuff's going on. Oh, in fact, while stuff's going on, real quick, I'm just going to tweet this out. It's going to take a second. Share. And Twitter. And I'm back. Okay, and I'm back. All right. Hey, everybody. This is crossing the street. And I'm headed. This is the scene in front of me, all right? I made this vlog because, or this live vlog because there are some who are still upset that I announced my endorsement for my god sister for mayor. And one person, Dan Rush, who at one point was on the Democratic Central Committee for Alameda County, said on Facebook, well, the reason why I do it this way is because I'm kind of sick and tired of people giving money to Mark Zuckerberg and this really stupid passion. I have nothing against Mark, but it's just ridiculous. Every time somebody puts something out there on Facebook, on text, that's money in his pocket. Anyway, he says, well, as a journalist, you should be, He's basically saying that because in his view, I'm a journalist and I'm supposed to be objective, that I can't endorse anybody. That's ridiculous. Okay? And it advances this silly myth that media is truly objective, which is ridiculous. I am biased, okay? I've always stated my biases. That's what bloggers do. There is a blogger's code of ethics that's separate from what journalists do, by far. And a blogger states their biases up front. And in this instance, my bias is for Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf to be reelected. Now, if you want Libby to do better, there are two things you can do. Either help her, or run for mayor, or get someone else to run. Because right now, she's running unopposed, okay? That's how all this started. Libby is running unopposed. There are people who are talking who have done nothing. Ignacio says he's going to run for mayor. He hasn't even filed to run at all. Same with Ken Houston. By contrast, when I said I was going to run, or thinking, I said I put out a caveat. I didn't say absolutely I was going to run. I thought about it. I said, I'm thinking about it. I'm leaning toward it, but I'm not sure. I said, but when I do, I'll file. Because I know how this is done. You go out, you get about, you get 100 signatures plus. You make sure you get 200 signatures because some of those signatures are not going to be valid. That's just a fact, all right? And then you submit them, and hey, boom, you have your filing. Then you have to go out and raise money, and you have to come up with, guess what, an idea of how you're going to improve the city, okay? And that's what you do. But in terms of me, all right, everybody has a bias. You have even, many organizations that state their endorsements for political candidates. Media has always supported politicians one way or another. So for Dan to come off with that, I read that, I thought, has he lost his freaking mind? I mean, he's old enough not to. So I thought, let me respond back in this way. Because when you put something on Facebook in text, I know it's easy and everything, but I'm sorry, I'm in media. I want to make money myself. All right, so does Mark Zuckerberg. If you have a problem with that, too bad. That's it. Now back to my point, and it's this. You should always ask what the bias is of the producer of media that you're reading. Where are you coming from? Okay? I mean, for example, there was a article written, I happened to run across recently. I didn't see it when it was first put out there, about Scott McKibben, who is the executive director of the Oakland Alameda County Joint Powers Authority. And the person that wrote it was Robert Gammon. It was very critical of him. But see, Robert never put in the article that he worked for Scott McKibben when Scott ran A&G newspapers back in, I believe it was 2005, 2006. And they were going through this problem where they weren't getting paid enough money as media, as journalists, okay? And Robert was very critical of his actions then, how he ran the newspaper. But see, Robert didn't put that in the article where he was critical of Scott getting under $300,000 contract. So I'm reading this, I'm thinking, this guy is biased. He's not even mentioning his bias. He's going to say he's an objective journalist. Okay, right? I mean, you should always explain your biases, period. Always. I'm using that as just one example. There's, of course, the examples around the Iraq War and how a number of media people supported it, covered it up. Jessica Yellen, who's now my Facebook friend, talked about how the media was complicit in support of the Iraq War and did as much as they could possibly do to avoid talking about the Downing Street memos. What were the Downing Street memos? The memos that essentially said that, hey, look, we know that Iraq had nothing to do with the 9/11 bombing, and it was more than likely in Afghanistan, but we're going to do this anyway. I'm simplifying a very complicated story, okay? But there are a number of people in the media who are complicit in this, and it's known. It's completely known. So, so this idea of that the media is objective, just knock it off. Everybody has a bias. Everyone has a right to a bias. That's life. Just ask what the bias is and move on. Speaking of which, this is tonight. So what's happening? I am now down in what you could call, I guess, part of San Francisco's arts district, right? And this is I'm coming near it's called MoMA, or SF MoMA, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. And also the new, it's finished now. The Moscone Center expansion is now open. And this is St. Regis right here, right there, all right? Where I'm gonna duck into in a bit, but point that I'm making is that we'll walk over real quick and check on the Moscone Center expansion while I have a little time before I walk in there, all right? So, hey, how are you? Sorry, this guy's trying to come in and cross. This is something else. This is the new Moscone Center expansion. Oh, and by the way, for you Comic-Con fans, San Francisco Comic-Con in June 6th of 2018 is going to be Oakland Comic-Con. Sorry, you guys put some comments up there I didn't quite read because they went by really quickly. You want me to read them? You buy a super chat, they'll stick there. I'll send you and I'm behind schedule this, but I will send you a shirt. This is the new Moscone Center expansion. Take a look, folks. Something else. Wow. That's the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts right there, okay? And that, what you're looking at, this is Moscone Center East. Actually, technically Moscone Center South, but it's a new expansion for Moscone Center. Take a look at this right here. Wow. If you're wondering what's behind me, this is a W hotel in San Francisco, but this is the new Moscone right here. See that?
Jewel box.
Now, this is the Urban Buena Center for the Arts right here. There you go. See that? All right. Hey, Barry Lee, how's it going? Hope is it still snowing in Seguin, Texas? Anyway, hey, look, I got to go on to my appointment, but I wanted to chime in and I wanted to get that out there because, well, Dan Rush, it is quite warm. It's about 50, low 52 degrees, I think, something like that. It's quite warm. By the way, this is the W Club right here, all right? This is Howard Street in San Francisco, all right? And this is 3rd Street right in front of me here. This is 3rd Street right there. That and that, all right? And like I said, this is the W Club, right? Excuse me, the W Club, the W Hotel. See this? The W San Francisco. There you go. All right. Happy holidays, everybody. Remember, I'm a blogger, not a journalist. I'll see you. Or a video blogger. Vlogger. I'm a vlogger, not a journalist. Hey, CSU Ram, sorry, I got to go. But I'll see you on the ground next. I got to go in here. I'll see you. See you guys. All right. Okay. I love playing that because what I said then applies now. I come with a bias. You know what my biases are. You know why. And I turned against any support the city of Oakland was doing in 2000 regarding the athletics because they didn't give the A's the gift, the promised gift of a tax increment financing zone, what we call an enhanced infrastructure financing district, and a public financing authority, which would have given the athletics triple the subsidy that is part of the deal in Las Vegas and Nevada. Remember, the true subsidy is actually $120 million to begin with, okay? The other part of it, the tax credits that bring it to 180 million, or 380 million, excuse me, are such that the A's, they're not subsidies. The A's can choose to not use the tax credits. Tax credits are, hey, I'm supposed to pay X amount of tax, but I've got this credit here that makes me pay something lower. That's what a tax credit is. It's not a true subsidy at all. A subsidy is when I give you money right off the bat, as opposed to give you a coupon that says you can use this later. All right, that's what the tax credit's about. There are a lot of you who mix that up all the time. All right, so Vegas Mark says regarding San Diego Comic-Con, Las Vegas, says hold my beer. You know, Stephen Hill of Las Vegas Commission and Business Authority have their eyes on it. Wonder how that's going. Rap Album Depot says Pedro Martinez told me in 1995 that crime was the deterrent to him joining the Giants. Okay. And then he says Pedro never mentioned homelessness. All right. Little off topic there, but at any rate, there it is, folks. Now we're at an hour presentation, and I believe I have given you a look at stadium financing. In fact, I know I have given you a look at stadium financing and ballpark financing that no one else has presented in this context to date. And I'm going to keep pushing how this really works, because a lot of you have John Fisher on the brain and you can't think past that and begin to look at how stadium and ballpark financing is really done. And note, I gave you the example of none other than the Texas Rangers and their situation. Okay. And what was that called? A private placement. So you've just been served up an example of what the Oakland Athletics are going to use in the Las Vegas context. All right. We'll see you. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube. Please. Like and subscribe. And bookmark our newest website, CESLasVegasNews.com. I'm very proud of it. I'll see you all later. See you soon. Bye-bye. And share this around.